Okay, hey everyone, to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really interesting review for you from the brand ATOWAK. A little bit about them. They're dedicated to creating high-quality mechanical watches with unique and bold design philosophy. They want to redefine the aesthetics at the wrist and really make your time more unique than others. They're inspired by Julius Caesar's cipher, once used to encrypt messages between authorities. And essentially, the word ATOWAK can be deciphered as the word unique. And this falls, of course, within that kind of wild card watch. And some key common characteristics in that language, you're looking for something to kind of fill out that space. You're going to want that standout or statement timepiece that trades versatility and timelessness for all-out style and peak design. This is their Cobra in steel with silver accents, and it takes clear inspiration from the groundbreaking URWERK UR-202 in terms of that revolving satellite complication, while adding kind of their own spin at a much more affordable price point. When I say affordable, yes, affordable compared to six figures, but not cheap. This goes for just under $2,000 at $19.99, but you can use the 15% off code. If you go to their site right now at the time of filming this, I see one for Cobra 2023, so you can use that and basically get another 15% off of this. ATOWAK did send this in for review, so big shout out to them. But of course, all of my feedback is always going to be, completely impartial to the circumstance of how the watch came in. I'm just telling you genuinely what I think about it. And I have a lot to say. So although this is a wild card watch, it actually kind of falls within, I think, another subgenre within the wild card watch, which is that hot horology affordable complication, which, recently you guys saw I featured the first tourbillon on the channel, and now this. I mean, this is pretty wild stuff, even down to the materials. I mean, we're talking carbon fiber and aircraft grade aluminum in terms of some of the components just to create that satellite functionality. So this thing is pretty wild, honestly. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys. So the Cobra, a lot of it has to do with this case because it looks kind of like a cobra's head. If you guys can see that, and you can see just finishing wise, the high polished facets around here, the extra windows. I mean, this thing's wild. The silver twill carbon fiber inserts, the 12 o'clock crown. There's just a lot going on. And then even getting into the underside, you guys might remember the brand ATOWAK. I had them on for their design that looked kind of like an old school kind of transistor radio. And this thing, again, they do this wild stuff, but also very functional. Check this out. So it's on bracelet, and then you just pull that out, and now it's not on bracelet, which is pretty wild, I think, right? So that just comes right off, and then you just have this headpiece, and then you see in there, oh, hey, look, that's kind of familiar. It's a Miyota movement, right? And then now you have, let me just give it a couple of quick wipes here, just because now I'm going to get my fingerprints all over it, not having the bracelet to hold. But check this thing out. This is just wild, guys. So let me just try to get it close enough, but to where you guys can see. So this is pretty wild. 43 millimeter diameter, pretty much at its widest point, and then 17.2 millimeters at its thickest point. So quite thick, but it's not all the way there. About 50 millimeters lug to lug in terms of kind of end to end on the case. This is made out of 316L stainless steel. It does have a flat sapphire crystal, and then more than one, which is pretty wild. Push pull crown, which is signed, as you guys can see there, with the AK for ATOWAK. And inside, of course, is this movement, but it has been customized. It's a Miyota 9039, so no date movement. Really interesting viewing window there. Even just the design on the case back is, again, they just kind of take it to another level. Actually, it also comes with a strap too, and the crazy thing is, also check this out. Look at this hardware. It's pretty, again, wild is the word. So essentially it's just spring friction right here. You can see there, and you just push it up against it, and it should just kind of go in. It's a little easier on the way out than it is on the way in, but once you figure it out, you can kind of just, there you go, bam. Which I'm gonna say wild so many times, so many times, and now I'm just polishing all of my fingerprints off of this case. And you know, again, that's more so for the review. In real life, you're not going to be, you know, really touching this a ton. It's going to be on your wrist, right? So let's just do that really fast. Check that out. Very, very cool. Very different. You know, they've obviously thought about some of the lines flowing there in terms of the padding. I do have a 7.5-inch wrist, and I know this is a little unorthodox. Normally, I'll cut away kind of for that portion. What I'll do is I'll cut away when I put the bracelet back on. But just to give you guys a quick look here, just because this thing is just kind of really out there. And again, the complication is paying homage, but the actual design, I mean, it is pretty different than that URWERK, I will say. I mean, you know, it's obviously in a similar vein, but it's not a direct homage. It's not a copy. It's not a clone. So I think that is definitely a nice take that they went through the trouble of, you know, doing that. And actually, what's kind of funny, it comes in the case with this little protector guy, so that it comes pristine to you. And I will say, not that I think anybody should wear it with it, but you know, if you don't want to muck it around or anything, it's kind of cool that you do have that as an option. I don't know why I like that so much, but I do. I obviously it looks so weird, but I mean, without it, still extremely weird. So I guess like not a big deal, but I don't know. That was just kind of fun. I know that's for them purely protection centered and not really meant to be ornamental in any way. But I don't know. I thought that was cool. So some of you were just like, man, tell me how this thing tells time though. All right. So without further ado, we'll get into that. So right now the time is 10. And then it should be about 10:16. So that's how it works. And basically this is going to spin. You can see previously it was 9. When this one comes down, it's going to be 11. That 9 is going to cross over into a 12 eventually. And that's how it works, guys. It's really that simple. So let's go ahead and demo that. So as this is a 10, you can see that's now going to be 11. So let's say it's 10:50, then it's 10:55. Then it's basically going to change over now. Once you get to 60, it's also going to go to 0. And then now it's 11 and 11:01. And then now you can see that 12 rotated over. So now, and then that 10, keep an eye on the 10 because it just became a 1 because that comes after 12. So these all just spin in the right directions, and even if you go reverse, it's going to go back. So you can see that 11 becomes a 2, right? And you're going back. So I think this is really, really neat. It's just, there's something about it as it kind of goes over there. You're getting the time, and it just works. There's really no seconds hand or anything, which I think is nice to have. But honestly, this thing is so dynamic in the way that it moves. Like, let's just like leave it here at, let's say 2:30. So now you only get the one that's there, right? Only the one little face there for the hour. And then the other two are kind of hidden, which I think is cool. And then as it comes over, of course, you're going to see more things kind of come to life, which is just kind of wild. Man, I count how many times I say wild in this review. It will be a lot of times. Let me just fix the tripod there. All right. So let's get to the details here. So 3D copper and aviation aluminum dial. So the dial that's underneath there, that's what it's made out of, guys. So the shapes there, for them to get that, they had to use copper, right? A bit softer, so they were able to punch that out. And then of course aviation aluminum, because they wanted to keep this pretty light. It is still pretty heavy, right, because it's a sizable case in general, but they did go through that. Then you have this 360-degree revolving satellite hour wheel, which is actually made out of aviation aluminum and carbon fiber. So you look really closely, if you see anything that's blacked out material, matte black, there you go. You can actually see, check it out right there, right around the two, right? What's framing it? That's carbon fiber. You can even see the weave, three-dimensional. So I mean, they didn't cheap out, right? So yes, this is a way more affordable, right? Not six figures. You could get like a used URWERK for like, I don't know, 89 grand if you're lucky. 89, not 8 or 9, $89,000 will maybe be the cheapest one you get, or you can experience something very similar with this. And I don't know, there's just something kind of cool about that. And again, just like how I recently featured Tourbillon, it's just, there are certain things now, thanks to the progress of technology, that they're able to do, and they're able to recreate at a much cheaper price point, at a larger scale. And I'd liken it to kind of a couple of years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, maybe even 20 at this point. No, that's like about 10, 15 years ago. Dive watches, that was the frontier, right? You saw mainstream watches, they were going deeper and deeper, right? Whether it be Rolex, Omega, Seiko, making these deep divers. And then you would see that these micro brands would come out with 1,000-meter divers, 5,000-meter divers, crazy stuff, right? Just way deeper than you'll ever need, overbuilt. That was like their way of accessing that kind of street cred, that complication. Hey, if we don't have the name, the history, what we can do is take the capability and create that, right? And that's something now that they're doing with these really, intricate complications, right? Is now, yeah, they don't have the high dollar, the name, the hype around, these types of watches. But what they do is that, where they really excel is like, hey, they're taking these complications and they're actually like working. Like it's just like, hey, yeah, you could take that 1,000-meter diver and like submerge it underwater and it would actually be water resistant, right? Which is wild. And yeah, you take this satellite style complication and it actually works. Like, that is crazy. You can see there's a 2 there, there's a 5 on one side, then there's, it's kind of hard to tell, maybe that's an 11 on the other side. So I mean, there's just a lot to keep track of. The cool thing is you don't really have to do that, because it actually will just make everything make sense for you, right? So I don't know, there's something that's really interesting about this to me. Of course, you're also getting Swiss Superluminova, which is printed on, which is great, so you can actually see this in the dark. It even has water resistance. It's 3 atmospheres or 30 meters, which isn't too shabby. I mean, I wouldn't want to go diving with it, or maybe not even swimming with it, but you could rinse it off in the sink if you did ever get it kind of dirty, which is a help, right? And then you get this, of course, this integrated quick release lug setup, which works great for a bracelet, which works great for straps. And these are very cool, and they're included, and everything works as proprietary. This bracelet is pretty wild. I mean, I wish it had half links, guys. It doesn't. Looks really nice though. You can see the connectors are just basically a really strong pin you can shove in and out, while the connectors are screw in. So get it to focus there. Yeah, so screw in, everything's milled, everything's a separate piece there. There are 3 links, all angular, all faceted, all blinging away there. Great flat brush, and then the high polished little facets. So there's definitely a lot of interesting things going on. This is gonna taper. It's gonna be like 22. These are actually both 22 millimeters at the farthest point, and then they kind of taper down. So the stainless steel bracelet tapers down to 18, and then the strap tapers down to 20 millimeters. But now that you guys have seen this is actually, wow, this part dragged on to guys, because I was just rambling so long with how interesting and wild this thing is. So with that said, let's actually cut away, get everything rehooked up, so we'll get the bracelet on the wrist. Okay, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this thing wears pretty well considering, right? And of course, if I get it too close to the camera, there's gonna be a little bit of lens distortion. It's gonna really overpower the wrist. But if I leave my hand nice and low and then just tighten up the frame here, guys, you guys can see a better detailed look at it. And the light plays amazing. Of course, it doesn't have half links, so it's probably a little bit looser than I would prefer. And man, is this thing weighty. So I will say the bracelet does kind of help balance it out, because otherwise it is quite top heavy. But then when it's on the strap, you can actually kind of get it secured a little bit tighter. So then it doesn't feel as top heavy. So it's kind of a trade-off. I guess it works both ways. But yeah, this thing is sweet. Check that out. I mean, this whole review is just thrown off the whole format. So let's do this. Let's get even weirder and try to turn off the light real fast and then get that. Let me pull this back here. Okay, let's integrate everything. Since this watch is wild, let's also get pretty crazy with, of course, the format of the review. Hit it with some black light here. Make sure that it's nice and charged. And then I'll do this. Bam. Check that out. You can see the AK. You can see the 2. I mean, this thing is just, again, it's wild. Look at that. And the camera somehow, it's bright enough to where the camera is even actually staying focused. A lot of the times, that's something that'll be the first thing to go. So look how cool this thing looks. Wow. That is nice. Really, really well executed. But of course, now this is where it's going to get really hard. I got to reach over. Now I'm trying to do a low light transition while it's on the wrist. This is new, uncharted territory, guys. So of course, I always like to work in low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to be coming in and out of the building, walking underneath overhangs, maybe hanging out underneath the shade of a tree, or spending some time in your favorite automobile. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. To maybe even include some harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects. But here you're just going to see a couple of fingerprints here and there. But my goodness, guys, look at that dial come to life because of that 3D pattern that's on there. It almost has kind of a Geneva stripe look to it. Man, that is cool. And then and then it rules that it actually is loomed. Oh, that lume is dying out. So as nice as it was earlier, it is definitely something to, to consider, that the lume will eventually, let's hit it with some black light again, will eventually die out, just because there's only so much you can do for printed lume. But this thing is just sweet looking. My gosh. All right. Again, just wild card watch, wild card format. Everything is just wild today. But this is just a really, again, just so cool, so different. It just forced me to even shake things up in terms of my review format. Hey, I'm going to take the watch off now. Don't really do that. And let's get into kind of the closing thoughts here, guys. So on the wrist, it wears quite odd, really. More of a conversation piece than a pure timepiece. Definitely more balanced on that heavy bracelet, but without those half links, you might prefer the leather strap for a more exact fit. And then in terms of model variants, definitely check the site links for options and availability. This is, of course, one with probably the most vanilla, being steel with silver, accents, but they do have some more playful colors. This one is I kind of like the monochromatic look just because it's already so complex. I don't think it needs colors to make it any wilder. This one's just really, really interesting to me. And the fact that they were able to do this at this price point is, again, it just says to, those small brands that are out there just able to do really, really cool, interesting things that honestly would otherwise be, you know, completely unattainable. So yeah, it's just very cool to be able to see this, to hold it in the palm of my hand. In terms of comparable models, you know, there's always, of course, a six-figure URWERK if you want to get the real deal. You could do that, and you could spend six figures, or you could get yourself a nice deal for, you know, maybe $89,000, or you could buy this for under $2,000 and then get it, you know, get 15% off and get it even cheaper. So that's, I think, pretty cool. So for me, the bottom line is this is definitely a fun wildcard watch with a distinctly complex layout that you know, you can't help but be impressed by this. Like, there's no, I mean, although it's, again, it's more cost effective and it's cheaper, it's not cheap. Like, they didn't cheap out, like, just, there's nothing cheap about this. I mean, again, that's carbon fiber. You can see the weave around that frame there. That is, you know, that's this satellite, and then just the brushing, the windows, everything. There's just so many cool features that they did. And again, this watch isn't for everybody. My gosh, I mean, price point wise, it's not for everybody. Even if some people don't want to spend that much money on a watch that doesn't have a complication, right? Like, hey, you got to get a chronograph or a GMT hand for that much. Here, you're getting like a really grand complication. This is just next level. So I guess some of you might even say that subjectively adds value. Actually, I mean, objectively adds value, and then subjectively, if you like the style, if you're just kind of a wild card kind of guy in general, you might have a collection of wild card watches, right? And maybe they're all just kind of weird and wild like this. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, do subscribe for more content just like this. Maybe not just like this, but, you know, just watch reviews in general and maybe some EDC stuff now and again. But I am expanding the format to where I'll even start doing other stuff too. You guys have probably noticed there's more videos with my face, stuff on site, on location, chatting with folks within kind of the collecting hobby. So let me know again what you guys think of this crazy, wild thing in the comments below. And yeah, if you like the video, let me get a little thumbs up, and again, subscribe if you haven't. It's like, I get a lot of views from people who aren't subscribed, so hey, you might as well. All right, thanks guys.